First of all, my mother was from Barbados, and her family, my grandfather, her father was from India, and her mother, my grandmother, Irish English. So my mother wasn't, quote, other as far as a lot of people was concerned. My wife from the Dominican Republic, she was born here, but her mother and father mother was attached to the Dominican consul. So she was an other. And the others were treated very differently. I don't know if a lot of people realize that. The others were treated differently, even though they were of color, from the so-called Native American Negroes. So my wife was not exposed to that, but she was traveling in a relatively white world at that time. As for me, as we got into upper grades in elementary school, 7th and 8th, several things happened. One of the classmates who was born on the 4th of July, had his birthday party every year. And on the last day of school, we'll be passing out the invitation to his birthday party. This happened a number of years. I never got one. But then what struck or slapped me, however you want to call it, one year, it might have been 7th grade, when he was passing them out in front of me and reached past me and didn't give me one. Somebody said, "Oh, you didn't give Ro one, Roll Amin." And he just casually said, "Oh, my mother said we can't invite the colored."
No.
So that was a smack. And similar situations did happen. But I weathered the storm. I graduated from Segregation Elementary School and went to Archbishop John Carroll High School. But by that time, I was a little older, 13 so years old, understanding that even though Brown versus Board of Education had come in 1954, and I was graduating from 8th grade in 1957, the sting and effects of racial segregation was still everywhere. And even though I'm in D.C., because public accommodations didn't come nationally until the Civil Rights Act of 1964, effective January 1st, 1965, you go over here in Virginia, go over here in Maryland. I remember very well, no Negroes, colored entrance in the rear, white only. So I grew up as a young child in that atmosphere. And I do, when they forced the D.C. case that forced integration, the Thompson's Restaurant case, 1951, Court of Appeals ruled in 1953 that a public accommodations clause left over from the 1870s in D.C. was still good and forced everything open in D.C. That's why a lot of people say, oh, it was open, but they don't realize D.C. was open. But points north, all the way up to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania line, Delaware and Maryland was still segregated. And I was at People's Congregational Church, and Arthur Fletcher Elms, who was the pastor, along with Mary Church Terrell and Reverend Jernigan, those three were the main three. They are the ones that pursued the case all the way to get the segregation facilities in D.C. knocked down and opened up in 1953.